So somebody left this table at the dumpster at my apartment complex, and I saw it there while I was dropping off my trash, and it looked kind of nice at a glance, like it might formerly been a nice table. And it was about to rain, and so I kind of grabbed it and threw it in the back of my car to bring it back and give it a look over and see if it was worth kind of maybe restoring. From what I can tell, it's solid wood and not a veneer. Unless it's a very good veneer job, but I guess as I strip it down, I'll find out. But it seems to be solid wood, just from the way you can see the individual boards of the table. Some of them are kind of coming apart a bit here. The finish is in pretty good shape. There's obviously this really big scratch here, but it's not very deep. I think it might just be in the finish, not in the wood itself. But if it is, I think it should be pretty easy to sand out. There's a lot of gunk and stuff on here, but that shouldn't be too hard to get off. Over here's another decent sized scratch. The biggest damage to the top is this chip in the edge of the drop leaf side right here. So this table has latches, which I'll show in a second, but not latches, but little sliding supports to drop this down. You can see this snapped off at some point. Fortunately, this side of the brake is pretty straight, so that'll be easy. The hard part will be matching the curve on the bottom side, but that shouldn't be too hard to do. And then the other thing I guess that I want to do with the top is you can see from here that the drop leaf sides go down a bit. So if we take a level here, 0, and then we go over here about 3 degrees off, another 3 degrees off. So I might just try to see if I can get these to straighten up a little bit, and even that would be a lot better. So I was a little surprised when I flipped this over. When I grabbed it kind of in a rush, I wasn't sure of how nice of a table it actually was. If it was just some sort of recent, factory made thing, or if it was older. When I flipped it over, I was trying to find if there's any sort of tag or stamp or anything, trying to, tell me more about who made this or where it's from. I can't find anything on it, so I don't know who made it or when. It has these sliding latches for the drop leaf sides, which I haven't seen a lot of personally. That's not to mean they're not common, but it's just not something I've run into yet. Usually I see like the swinging kind of brackets that swing out from one side and lock in. And if you look at these up close, you'll see that you can see that these look like they were made by hand. This has marks on it like it went through a bandsaw maybe. Um, and then on the inside here, where these supports kind of come together, you'll notice that even like this groove that they routed out, so it's not quite straight. It comes off at the end on both sides, which tells me that someone probably did that by hand. You'll see here when I first started playing with this, I went to push this in and it popped out that middle piece, and so that's what's taped on the side here. I'm gonna have to glue that back in. On the side here, there are all of these staple marks everywhere that either rusted off or got ripped out, but they left one side in the table everywhere. And there's a few more staples kind of spread around. This one looks like it used to have a cardboard tag or something underneath it, or somebody stapled something to it. There's this piece of tape that, I don't know why that's there, but I haven't been able to find any sort of like make or mark or anything, and so I don't know enough about tables like this to guess when it might have been made or who might have made it, but it definitely seems like at least part of it was handmade. Over here where these brackets were put in with these really old style flatheads, you can see they're soft, they're all chipped out, but it looks like someone might have been using a power drill to put them in and slipped off and kind of gouged the wood. Almost all of these brackets have a mark like that. See, this one has it where it looks like they slipped. I should be able to reuse all of these brackets, which is nice. However, I noticed on this one, I don't know what happened to this flathead, but that one might be hard to get out. I'm gonna have to try and maybe pull it out, twist it out with some vice grips, or get a file and remake this groove so I can get a flathead in there. The sliding bracket on this side catches a bit, so I'll try to. That might just be part of the. When I was showing it was on level earlier, but it might smooth this out a bit. Take it all apart. Put some wax and stuff in here so it glides a little smoother. The other thing worth noting, I guess, is the legs. They're in pretty good shape overall. A few of them have some missing finish up around the top. This one in particular is missing a lot. The screws that hold on the apron here are all in pretty good shape, so hopefully those will be easy to take off. I did notice though that this one, either they missed a screw or it's buried in something. I'm hoping it's just a missing screw. So the first thing I'm going to do is disassemble the table, and I'm going to start by taking off all of the hinges on the bottom side. So I definitely want to reuse these hinges. Well, I've realized that I thought they were brass, but this brownish color actually seems like it's excess lacquer or stain. Starting to chip off, whereas the back sides are not in great shape. A lot of them are pretty rusty, so I'm gonna have to get the rust off of those. I haven't decided if I want to reuse these screws or not yet. They're really sharp on the edges, and they're kind of crumbly. So I think I might try to find something a little newer. It's not gonna fall apart if someone has to take these things out again. So I've got a jar of white vinegar here. I'm gonna put all of this hardware into this jar overnight and let the vinegar get all this rust off. Alright, next I'm gonna see how much of this skirt I can get off. Hopefully it's just screwed and not glued. Alright, so this one screw on the apron or screw hole that I thought was maybe just missing a screw, Looks like instead somebody went and filled the top of it with glue or wood filler or something. So I'm having trouble getting it out. Maybe it was loose. Rather than fixing it properly, they just put a bunch of glue in there to keep it tight. But I'm gonna have to figure out a way to dig all that out of there. All right. Well, that was a huge pain in the butt. There had to be a quarter inch to a half inch of I don't know what it was, glue or wood filler or something, but this is all in one piece, the skirt here, and I'm going to leave it that way. I think the rest of it is glued. I don't really want to mess with. I don't think I really need to knock these off. Um, I'll be able to sand the legs down as they are. And then the last thing to do is just to take off this support piece for the slides. And then just have to take out some of these staples. Then we can get to stripping the finish. This last one here doesn't want to come out. Well, it finally came off, and it was because, just like that other one, the head twisted off of the screw, so I think I'm going to try and just replace all of these. They all seem like they're not in the best of shape. Not a good start. There we go. I tell you what, if you don't have a pair of vice grips like this, they are lifesavers. Alright, so I'm not 100% sure if this is shellac or lacquer finish. So I'm going to take some. I don't have lacquer thinner on me right now, but I do have a small bottle of acetone. So I'm going to put a bit of that on there, and if it gets tacky, then I know it's either a shellac or maybe a varnish, but I'm hoping it's not a varnish. And that didn't seem to do anything, so I'm guessing this is probably a lacquer then. But to be sure, I want to go get some actual lacquer thinner and make sure that's what it is, and it's not maybe something else. Alright, so I kind of changed my mind a bit. I said I wasn't going to bother spending any time working on the bottom of this, but if you look here where these hinges were, the finish was applied after the hinges, and so there's these ridges around all of them, as well as here there's kind of a ridge sometimes. Plus here there's some tear out where these holes came, or where those holes were drilled. So I'm gonna take all the finish off the bottom of this as well as the top. I probably won't do much afterwards to the bottom, but I at least want to get it all smooth and uniform at least. So with that keeps this pretty sturdy, so I don't have to worry about it sliding back and forth while I'm scraping. can see this takes this off pretty easy, and this is already down to bare wood. Alright, so I've been using this little scraper. I have a bigger scraper somewhere and I can't find it. I thought I'd be able to use the smaller one to do the whole thing. It's taken quite a while, even though it's doing a good job. So I'm gonna go try the orbital sander instead and see how far I can get with that without hopefully gumming up too many pads. Well, I'll try this for a bit. I'm not sure how far we're gonna get, but alright, the sander is not going any faster. If anything, it's slower. So I'm going to go back to my tiny scraper and hopefully I'll be able to find the bigger one at some point, but I think this is actually going to be faster than the sander, and then I'll use the sander to just to clean up what's left. And that's kind of what this side is over here. I could use the lacquer thinner, but honestly, if I don't have to, I don't like using that stuff unless I have to, just because of the fumes, and it's messier, and I'd much rather deal with the dry shavings that I can vacuum up. Switched out the blade on here to a more curved one so I can do these curved edges. Since this is curved instead of the power sander, I'm just going to use a piece of hand sandpaper. I also need to pull out, if you'll be able to see them, I need to pull out these broken off staples. I'm just going to do that with the vice grips again. So hopefully it should just be able to come in from the top. And, oh, okay. That one was easy. Hopefully this one's a little deeper or a little shorter. Try to loosen it up. This one's much harder. Oh, it's slowly coming. Oh, and there we go. Hopefully it actually came out right. And I'll keep those from catching on any fingers. Alright, next I'm going to put back in this small chunk that came out of the bracket on the bottom here. Should just be able to slide it back in, and hopefully with the glue it still holds. Or hopefully with the glue it'll still slide in there. We'll see. And I think I needed to come in from the bottom when I did this. There we go. Great. And that's actually pretty darn close. Alright, so on this corner, on this the drop leaf, this is where that chip's missing. I don't have a piece of wood to match this. I'm still not sure. I think this might be walnut, but I'm really bad at identifying wood. So if somebody in the comments knows, please let me know. But I think it might be walnut. Regardless, whatever this is, I know I don't have a scrap piece to put on here. You know, if it's cherry or something else, I'm not going to have that. So my plan is, this is part of the bracket that goes underneath the table. All right, I actually realized after just saying that, in order to fill this, instead of using the bracket, it'd be way easier to use one of the slides. I will cut off, using the bandsaw, I'll cut off a little part on the end here. No one's going to be able to see that because it's going to be pushing up against the table like this inside of that slot. I'll cut that off, I'll glue that on here, shape that out, and then just to make sure there's no wobble in the slide, I'm going to cut just a piece of scrap pine or something I have, glue that back on here, sand it all down smooth. Alright, coming with the bandsaw over here and marked the chunk I'm going to cut. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight, so I'm just going to freehand it. Alright, here's my piece. You see on the back side where the dowel came through. So I'm going to cut another piece of pine, just fill this back in, sand it all down smooth, and then this I'm going to glue on to the table. We'll have this side up, so it's nicer, and then we'll shape it down to match that curve. Alright, so I got a piece of pine, and I'm just going to rough cut out this little square here, measured it out based on the gap in the other one. Alright, just need to glue this on here now. We'll clamp it down. Alright, so I've got the bracket that I was repairing with the piece of pine clamped here. What I really need for this is a tiny little block plane. I don't have one of those. I only have this jack plane here. So I'm gonna try and see if I can plane this down with this. Again, I got some tear out on the back, which I'm on the end grain, so that was kind of expected. Well, apart from this tear out on the corner, it worked okay. And again, since no one's gonna see this, no one's even gonna see this tear out, I think it's good enough for this. Do the other side, which doesn't stick out nearly as much, so it should be a lot easier. And that was pretty easy. Let's get him there. Right, again, that's definitely not the best way to do that, but it did work. I just gotta clean up this end. I think I might just do that with a sander, knock it down. Alright, so I've smoothed this down. Try to get it a little bit flatter than it was before. Just using a block. It's not perfect, but it's close enough, I think, for my purposes. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to glue this on here like that. And I'm just going to use some masking tape to clamp that down because this is sort of awkward. So. Put that down on that side. This is pretty close, so I'm gonna put some pressure on it, tape it. Hopefully that's sturdy enough. Now that this is dry, take a look at this. Still got a bit of a crack there, so I might need to fill that. I didn't get it completely flush. Alright, so to flush up this piece I added here, I'm just going to run the whole piece through my table saw, and I've got it stuck to this piece of straight chipboard, just with some double-sided tape on the bottom and on the top, just to keep it from sliding, and that'll give me a straight edge to work from. So I took off most of it. I'm gonna move up my fence just bit by bit and kind of walk up on this edge here until I have it almost perfectly flush. That way I don't accidentally cut into the rest of the table. So I've got this pretty flush now, except you can see that this curve here, there's a chunk missing that I wasn't able to fill by gluing this piece on, so I'm just going to add some wood filler there, some stainable wood filler, and hopefully that won't be too noticeable on the end there. And once this dries, I'll sand it down smooth. Here's that corner I repaired, all finished. Once I put the stain on, hopefully it'll even out this color a bit. In hindsight, I do realize that I should have attached this piece to match the direction of the grain. The grain's going this way on this leaf, and on the piece I glued on, the grain's going this way. Fortunately, it's small enough, and I think once I get a bit of stain on there, it'll be pretty hard to see. I'm probably the only one who will ever notice. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It didn't quite get the curve right here, but again, it's something I don't think anyone's really gonna notice except me. There's this scratch here on the one leaf. I did try to steam it out with a soldering iron and a wet rag. It raised a little bit. I forgot to film that. But this top layer here is an actual scratch and not a dent. So the fibers along the very top here are broken. They're shallow enough that I'm hoping just a quick sand will get that out of there. Here's that scratch I was working on earlier. The water on there so you can see. It's pretty much gone. You know, I kind of can tell where it is, but only because I know where to look. But otherwise, I think that's good enough. Alright, now that my stain is nice and dry, it's time to put on some finish. Originally it was that lacquer finish. However, I don't particularly like lacquer. I don't like putting it on. I don't really like the look or feel of it. And I feel like growing up I was surrounded by furniture that was lacquered that just weren't allowed to touch because it was so fancy and fragile to scratching. And I know a lot of people love lacquer, but I've never been a big fan of it. Um, Usually, I like to use a Danish oil finish or a tongue oil finish or something like that. Something that kind of soaks into the wood and leaves that nice natural wood look. However, since this is a tabletop, it probably needs more protection than that. So I'm going to use a wipe on poly. I do have some regular poly, but I find that the wipe on stuff is so much easier to apply, and it should give it some pretty good protection. I'm going to do at least 3 coats on the top. I might do more, see how thick it is. All right, it's sort of cold and damp here right now, and I put on that first coat sort of late in the afternoon yesterday, so I just left it overnight. So it's been 16, 17 hours now, so this is very dry. I want to scuff up this first coat before I apply the second coat. Usually I'd use steel wool, however I do have this piece of Scotch-Brite pad, um, which is probably preferable just because the steel wool might leave it'll leave little bits of metal sometimes, and then you got to clean those up before you put the next coat on. Whereas this Scotch-Brite pad will stay together a lot better. So I'm going to give everything just a real quick scuff, and then I'm going to go put on the second coat, and then I'm going to scuff it again, put on the third coat, scuff it again, probably do a fourth coat, and then from there we can start putting things back together. Alright, so now I've got to finish cleaning up all this hardware I'm going to reuse. Not the screws, but all of these hinges I want to reuse. The vinegar bath didn't get off all of the rust and all of the finish either. You can see where it helped to get it going though, so just going to take a wire brush and a scraper and get off the rest of this. So, right, you can see the difference now between the right side that I just cleaned and the left. Still a little bit more on there I can get off, but basically I'm gonna do that to all of these. There's still some rust on the back side too. This brush takes that right off though, so go ahead and do that to all the rest of these. Alright, now that I've got all the pieces finished, I'm going to start putting it back together. So I'll start with the bracket that goes on the bottom for holding up the leaves. Alright, next we're going to start putting these hinges back on. These have those 6 screws each. I did buy new screws for these. A lot of those other ones ripped off, or the tops sheared off when I was taking them apart. Hopefully these work okay. They're going in a little tight here. And I'm gonna leave these front ones loose until I do the other side of the table, just to make sure I get them to line up right. Here's something you don't see every day. One of the screws in the pack I got was not threaded. Fortunately, I have extra, but that was kind of funny. And last, I'm going to put on the apron and legs. Now the screws that go in here are 2 inches and a quarter. I wasn't able to find screws that were 2 and a quarter at any of my local stores. I didn't really feel like ordering them special online, so 2-inch might work okay, but I'd rather stick with what was in there before to make sure I'm getting the full grip on there. So I'm gonna reuse the original screws, and I just clean those up again, like I did the hinges, just with a wire brush to get all the rust off. And I got all the glue off that was on some of the heads there, so these should be fine. Here on the corners, that repair I made, it looks really obvious in this video here. It's not quite as apparent in real life when you're standing here. Could have done better, but I think it's good enough. It's definitely better than it was before with the giant hole there. Overall, I'm really happy with the finish. I think using the steel wool and the finishing wax at the end really helped. It's not perfect. There are some spots where the sheen isn't quite right, and I think that's when I applied the poly, there might have been areas that I accidentally went back over where it already kind of dried. But you really have to look hard and in a certain light to see them. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.